We have a number of trailblazers here in feminist foreign policy. We've got Canada, we've got Sweden, France, Spain, Germany, but there are also others, like Mexico. When I look around Africa, look at Rwanda, for example, and the political participation of women in Rwanda. But do we have a feminist foreign policy? I would want Zimbabwe to be the first African country to adopt a feminist foreign policy.
I represent proudly a country that sees itself as a champion of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Canada's feminist approach comes from a place of humility. We are very conscious. We're talking about accomplishments. We're talking about the resources.
I was born in the village, and we were listening to the radio during the war. They were talking about the negotiations. Schools had closed. There were no school to go to. So I didn't drop out of school. I was dropped out of school. The war was raging, and we would listen to the little radio. It was whispering the Lancaster negotiations. I had no idea where Lancaster was, but I knew it had to do with my life, with my peace, with my independence, with my going to school. I didn't know that was international relations, negotiating peace.
We must always be cognizant that right now in the world, there are also a lot of elements that are well-funded, well-sponsored, that are anti-gender. And we must also be conscious that whatever we're building can be reversed, and particularly in times of crisis, because these movements really do take advantage.
Women rights defenders in particular, they challenge the norms, they challenge traditional norms of family, gender roles, and they face additional challenges. And in the online world, that violence is unrestrained, has no end.
Patriarchy is underlying. There is resistance, there is hesitancy, and there's backlash. Where we've made progress, you also see backlash. So that is an analysis that is coming out of the feminist women's movement to say when we are engaging in the context of feminist foreign policy, we need to understand that patriarchy is embedded in the structures, in the systems within which international relations happen.
If parties are bringing in their list, are they in a zebra form that there is a 50-50 representation? As a woman, I'm put in a space where I have to compete. I'm competent enough, but the other party will bring in a man. And as women, we already are disadvantaged in a lot of ways. We don't have enough resources to push us to sustain what it takes to get into those political spaces.
We've heard about resources, we've heard about gender-based violence, representation and the absence of women in the spaces where the decisions are made. All that work has to be resourced somehow. What does support look like for women to address, for all these issues that are coming up to be addressed and to be addressed effectively? What does support look like?
And I mean, it's absolutely true that, women, and particularly young women, and youth organizations included, will be expected to make so much impact with very minimum resources. And I was to quickly discover this because I would occasionally be invited to the grown-up spaces, and they were always so well funded. It was very comfortable. But we went back to the youth movement and we're literally scrouching for resources, and we're very vulnerable.
Around supporting gender equality. But I think as an African woman that is sitting, especially in Southern Africa, I'm sitting and saying how much of that big pot that is supporting global gender equality work is actually coming to my region. As a woman working in Southern Africa, I find we are so left behind.
Reality checks are essential. It implies follow the money, follow the resources. Ambassador Adler mentioned availability of resources. We need to check how these resources are used. The Netherlands has a fund of 510 million euros as an SDG fund, SDG 5 fund, to support agenda lands, to support feminist movements.
Canada recognized the role of the role played by women rights defenders. We understand our approach needs to be context sensitive. We understand it needs to be based in inclusive partnerships in local communities.
We have to be committed towards this realization of gender equality, and also to ensuring that feminist ideals are finding their way into a lot of these different spaces. And that commitment really is not verbal. It's, through our deliberate, intentional actions. We have to actually act on it. And I think that's the greatest showcase of that commitment.